the first thing we need to talk about today, Chris, and this is not a surprise. We expected this. I didn't think anyone was going to offer Eli Manning the kind of contract that would make him leave the Giants and feel that he was going to be the guy wire to wire in 2020. That would take $20 million or more. I didn't think that was coming. He didn't think that was coming. He's not interested in changing teams. No one's out there interested in making him their guy for this year. So he retires. And more specifically, his retirement's announced yesterday, press conference Friday, not a surprise. And he's doing it at a good time, right?
Right.
He's tucking it into the end of the dead week between conference championships and Pro Bowl. He's not going to try to one-up Super Bowl week. He's getting it done now. He's getting it out there now. And, he deserves the celebration he's going to get for a great NFL career that ends after 16 seasons.
Yeah, that's right. NFL legend. And, it is time for Eli to retire. And I'm glad he is retiring. And I say that, I say that selfishly, but only because out of respect, where I just go, man, Eli Manning's a giant. That's what he is. I don't want to really see him in another uniform, just like we've talked about with Tom Brady and whoever else. To me, is synonymous. He's obviously one of the great players in the history of the franchise, and so many special moments. And, of course, some of the truly up there for the most epic moment ever in Super Bowl 42, defeating the undefeated New England Patriots. He will go down as a legend here in the New York area for sure for some of those playoff moments. And then added on to that, Mike, I mean, I don't know how many times you've met Eli, but Eli's a great guy. And it's hard to find somebody that dislikes him, a teammate that's disliked him. He's funny. He's personable. Really respect everything about Eli Manning, the human being and the football player.
Yeah, when the lights are on, he's more reserved, but when you get him away from that, he's very funny.
Yep.
He's sarcastic. He's a huge Seinfeld fan, which scores extra points in my book. And I'll tell you a quick Eli story from my own interactions with him. A couple of years ago at the Super Bowl, one of my nephews was in town for Friday. People come in, go to the game, and we had Eli scheduled for an interview. And I had to go to the room between interviews. I had to do something, whatever it was. But I was back, and I was on time. I was on time for the Eli Manning interview, but he was on Tom Coughlin time. He got there 5 minutes early for the interview, right? So, I got there, and he was just interacting with my nephew, and my nephew was pretending to interview him, and they were sitting there at the desk, and it was just a neat moment. And it's something that for him, it's just 2 minutes out of his day. It's something my nephew is never going to forget, and that's the way he was. And the work that he did for kids with cancer, that was kind of his cause, and probably will still be his cause going forward. It's just very meaningful, very beloved in the New York area, beloved throughout the National Football League, and he's given us some of the great moments in football games that we will always remember. The throw to David Tyree in Super Bowl 42.
Yep.
The throw to Mario Manningham in Super Bowl 46.
Was better.
That doesn't get the attention that it deserves.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the throw to David Tyree was more about the escape. That was amazing. The throw and the completion was, somewhat luck. Okay, I don't mean to disrespect anybody there, but you're right. The Mario Manningham throw. I mean, that's the greatest throw of Eli Manning's career. And you're right. These accomplishments. These were the New England Patriots who we thought were just, unbeatable. You can't beat this group. They're unreal. We've never seen anything play like this. And he forced them to lose 2 Super Bowls in a row because of his clutchness. And that's where he's a legend here in the New York area, just delivering in big moments where people are going to have great memories of that forever and ever.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And, that's going to raise the question that has been percolating even before he announces his retirement, whether or not he makes it to the Hall of Fame. And I'm a firm believer he will get there.
Yeah.
He will get there. He may not get there on the first try. I pegged the over-under last hour at 3.5 tries. I think he's getting in.
Yes.
Because it was 2 Super Bowl wins, 2 Super Bowl MVPs coming against 2 great Patriots teams. It's the Giants, right? It's the big moments that he gave us.
Yes.
And having the last name of Manning does not hurt.
Sure.
It doesn't. If he had a different last name, that's a factor. It's not the determining factor, but if it's
a little
close,
nudge.
It's a little bit of a tiebreaker if it's close.
Yes.
And the fact that he's a nice guy, right? If guys like Terrell Owens and Chris Carter got held out for multiple times because the voters regard him them as a jerk, The Eli Manning's the exact opposite. So if it hurts them, ipso facto, being a nice guy is going to help him when it's time for human beings to make decisions. Not robots, not computers. Human beings are making these decisions.
Yeah.
So the position he played, how he achieved at the highest levels, because his last name is Manning, because it was the Giants, and because he's a hell of a nice guy who was the Walter Payton Man of the Year along with Larry Fitzgerald in 2017. Those are all factors that will help him get in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there's three things I look at just to say it kind of gets him over it. Because if you took the regular season and just the stats and just win-loss record, you go, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Eli Manning, because again, I don't know if there was maybe other than 1 year of his career where I could really sit there and go, he was one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. All right. And maybe 2011, 2012, those are the 2 years I could probably think of where you can maybe throw him into that conversation there. But it's three things that I think nudge him in no matter what. The 2 Super Bowls, the playoff runs they made, those were magical. I mean, hey, beating Brett Favre on the road in Brett Favre's last game in Green Bay, I mean, that's almost as magical as beating the undefeated Patriots. Beating that San Francisco 49ers team in the 2011 NFC Championship game where he took a beating and just hung in there like a soldier, play after play after play, that whole playoff run. And then the last thing is his availability, the Iron Man-ness of Eli Manning. The fact that he played through that streak, 207 straight games and all that, I think those three things are, like what you're saying, nudge him into the Hall of Fame to where I think a lot of people would have been on the fence, but those three accomplishments are so, carry so much weight that I do think he gets in, second, third try, something like that.
And, I just sent an email to the Giants to find out what the transaction is going to be. We have to spin this forward a little bit, Chris.
Yeah.
Because if they put him on the reserve retired list, it complicates the possibility of a comeback in 2020. In the event there's a contending team that is undefeated in November and their quarterback tears an ACL and they give Eli Manning a phone call and he wants to come back, but he's on the Giants reserve retired list, it's going to be difficult for him to come back. He'd have to pass through waivers first, and it's just an extra layer. And I don't even know if you can put a guy on reserve retired when his contract is expiring in March. These are things we're trying to find out. But it's one of those details that at the time the retirement happens, you don't think of it. But it resonates going forward. Look at Rob Gronkowski. He had a hard window on when he could have come back this year because he's on the reserve retired list, and he can only come back for the Patriots until they release him from the reserve retired list. If you're just a free agent, you can come back whenever you want, however you want. You could sign, in theory, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to jinx anybody, but next year, in the conference championship round, the starting quarterback of one of the conference champions could tear an ACL and his team wins. And if you're a free agent, you can sign with him for the Super Bowl. If you're not a free agent, you can't. So, or if you want to, it's going to be far more complicated. So it's one of those weird little details that may shed light onto whether or not Eli Manning is at least keeping the door open just a little bit in the event something screwy happens this year.
Yeah, I hear you. I'd like to know that detail too. I'd be shocked though if it was anything but reserve retired. I would. I just think Eli, I've heard him say it before really for the last 2 or 3 years where, him being a New York Giant, retiring a New York Giant, I do think is important to him. And I also think that this year, the writing on the wall, just he finally read it. All right. I think he finally realized, listen, gosh, I'm okay, but man, I guess it's official. I'm not a starting quarterback. I think he saw that probably when he went to the bench. He saw Daniel Jones do some things where he probably went, ooh, I can't do that. I'm not on that level anymore. And I bet you that made him reconsider things. And does he really want to uproot his family and do all that stuff? I find that hard to believe too. He's a New Yorker now. That's what he is. He's been sucked in just like Phil Simms was. Phil always thought he was a Kentucky guy and might go back to Kentucky. And he ended up playing 15 years, and he's as New York as they come now. And that's what happens here in this area. You become a legend. The people will love you. The people will love Eli Manning more now than they did as a player. And that's pretty hard to do because he was pretty beloved as a player.
Well, and, there's been constant speculation about Peyton Manning's next move.
Yeah.
what speculation will there be about Eli? Does he jump into broadcasting? Would he be, I think he'd be very intriguing in that role if you get him in the right frame of mind where he's willing to kind of be himself. I mean, we've seen him in different settings where
commercials, things.
It's disarming how funny he can be.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I'm here. I'm with you. You know, whether he can actually do that with a mic in front of him and loosen up and be the guy that we know, you know, behind closed doors or something like that, I don't know. I still think the Manning family, they got too much money. Okay, they got more money than they know what to do with between Peyton and Eli. I mean, if memory serves me correct, they're still the two highest paid players in the history of football, and they're going to find.
I got the numbers.
Okay, but I was going to say they're going to find the investors. I think at some point to buy a team, and they're going to run it a la like a John Elway and be that type of guy.
Eli Manning currently is the highest earning player of all time with $252 million.
Right.
Peyton is at $248. Now, Drew Brees and/or Tom Brady will pass Eli this year if they play, assuming they play. But that's $500 million between Eli and Peyton. Now, that's pre-tax, and that doesn't take into account money they've made off the field. I still don't think they have enough between them to be the primary owner of a team.
Right.
Because you need billions, not $500 million. You need multiple billions to pull it off. You need the money to buy the team. You need the cash to buy the team. You need the cash to operate the team. But it's enough where they could be a significant minority partner with someone else who is the primary owner, who wants nothing to do with the publicity, who wants to just be the owner and let Peyton run it. Now, I don't know that Eli wants to hang out with Peyton every single day of his life. I think he probably got enough of that growing up.
Right.
But, you know, if that's what Eli's interested in and he wants to get involved in it, and maybe Eli's a silent partner and it's just Peyton who runs the show. But I could see something like that happening because between the two of them, they got plenty of cash, Chris.
Yeah, they do. They got plenty of cash. They had great careers. They deserve it. They got personnel. I think they would be very good at running a football team. I know. There's no doubt about that. And I'm with you. I think that's where they end up instead of maybe the broadcast booth when it's all said and done.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.